Okay, we're now going to just talk through how to answer 10-mark questions in the Paper 2 exam, where the questions focuses on how useful the source is for finding out about something in particular. This question you'll recognise from lessons and focuses on Al Capone featuring in Time magazine in 1930. There's some important things to remember when looking at how useful questions. First of all, you need to look at the focus of the question. So this question is focused on crime and gangsters during the period of Prohibition. So it's quite broad and allows you to bring in quite a lot of knowledge. The source itself is Time magazine, and it's important to look at the provenance. In the exam, they've told you here that this is a magazine that covers stories about rich and famous celebrities, and you need to be able to explain why that makes the source useful. You'll remember that in the structure of these questions, the first thing you need to do is say briefly what the source says about crime, gangsters during the period of Prohibition. You then need to talk about which knowledge you can bring to bear that might agree with the source and suggest that the interpretation the source gives is accurate and therefore useful. What knowledge you have that then disagrees with the source and shows that it is less useful and inaccurate. And then you need to consider the provenance, both positive and negative, that makes the source useful or again detracts from it. And finally, you need to finish with a conclusion which shows what the source is useful for. If we look at this from a student in Year 11 now, you can see that what they have done very effectively here is said briefly what the source shows. And this says, source F suggests that the attitudes towards Al Capone and organised crime were positive. Criminals were treated more like celebrities. Now they're straightforward, to the point and simple. The answer then goes on to use a range of very accurate and detailed knowledge here to support the source, and finishes here with this very effective section which explains why that knowledge makes the source useful. Furthermore, the answer then goes on to use knowledge that disagrees with the interpretation in the source, again with some effective explanation and some detailed knowledge. It perhaps could have a little more in here of specific detail, although there's some good statistics about numbers of gangsters murdered, and again some explanation in the middle of the paragraph this time. Furthermore, if you could, as I said at the start, the answer then, this is a very strong answer, then goes on to consider provenance. It talks about the nature of Time magazine here. There is both positive and negative provenance, and even it picks up on the most sophisticated point, which is mentioned in the mark scheme, to do with the power Al Capone had to control and influence his image. The answer could be a bit better if then it was able to say why this might be more or less useful. The conclusion then is strong and focuses on the fact that the source could be useful for some things and not others. So it shows what some people thought is useful and the nature of organised crime and the celebrity nature of Al Capone. However, it mentions very clearly the things that are missing with this nice little last bit of knowledge here about the Women's Christian Temperance Union. You can also see, a final thing to mention about this answer is there is a clear attempt to plan an answer at the beginning, which really adds to the quality here of the overall piece of writing. You see it's very easy to mark and to award a high number of marks because it's so clearly organised into these paragraphs which satisfy all the criteria of the exam. I hope you find this useful. Good evening.